Hey everyone. So I'm coming on to talk about deli meats because yesterday's reel seemed to spark a lot of questions, and I thought I would come on here to answer the most common ones that I've been getting. So we're going to talk about those, and also I'm going to show you what I do for sourcing and a couple of options that I like personally. So in yesterday's post, we talked about how during pregnancy, we may not actually need to cut out deli meat altogether or heat it up. And these recommendations to cut out deli meat or heat up deli meat is really driven by the fear around listeria. And listeria is serious, don't get me wrong, but the truth is, and this is from Real Food for Pregnancy, is that there's one case of listeria in 83,000 servings of deli meat. So the actual chances of getting listeria are pretty low. And, sourcing matters, storage matters, and I think those can have a lot to do with lowering the risk of getting it too. So if we're smart about it, we'll have less of a chance. And it's also worth mentioning that there's 1,600 cases overall every year. So in reality, with the population that we have, overall, it's pretty low. And that's total in terms of the numbers that I was just sharing, not just exclusive to pregnancy, but total. So it is thought that pregnant women are more vulnerable to these types of things, any sort of illnesses, including foodborne illnesses, because their immune system is suppressed. And so that's not true. And, I do want to make clear too, though, that some listeria is serious. I'm not saying that it's not serious. I'm just talking about the overall risk of listeria. Listeria is pretty serious, especially if you're pregnant. It can lead to pregnancy loss, it can lead to stillbirth, and it can lead to sepsis of the baby. So definitely good to know as well in terms of when you're assessing your risk too. That said, when you compare this to the risk of foodborne illness in other types of foods, so typically people consider more of the animal foods the higher risk foods versus plant foods, but that's not true. They're pretty much even keeled when it comes to risk of foodborne illness. So that's also something to know and note and take into your sort of considerations for risk tolerance as well. And so, if you are comfortable with these odds, then that's your decision to make. A lot of women crave deli meat during pregnancy, and sometimes it's the only thing that they can stomach. And so if it means the difference between not eating at all or being able to have, this deli meat that contains protein and other nutrients that will be supportive to them, then, it's up to them, in my opinion. And if you're not comfortable, that's also fine. You can avoid it if you don't want to take any risk at all in this category. You can also, put your sandwich in a panini press. You can chop up some ham and eat it with your scrambled eggs. Heat it up there. You can also chop up some salami and put that in some fried rice, and that would be awesome. You can also microwave it. To me, that sounds really gnarly, although I've seen this in person, and it doesn't sound very appetizing to me, but some people prefer to do that for time reasons, I think. There were a couple of you that were really upset that I did not talk about microwaving. Just a reminder, that wasn't the message of the post. I have talked about microwaves before, but if you want me to talk about this topic again and more, happy to do that too. Just let me know. So what I'm trying to say is, at the end of the day, you don't have to be beholden to these archaic do's and don'ts of food during pregnancy, and you can be a lot more empowered to make decisions on your own and what's right for you. So that's really the message of the day. That said, not all deli meat is created equally. So let's talk about deli meat, because really a lot of the concerns I got around this were more about the quality of the deli meats, and so let's talk about it. Of course, storage, sourcing, and common sense are really important factors when, trying to incorporate a food into pregnancy, but let's talk about sourcing first. So a lot of the concerns around deli meats can contain preservatives like nitrates, typically in the form of sodium nitrite, and these are added to the deli meat or other kinds of meat as well to preserve the color, to prevent acidification, and also to prevent bacteria from growing. And these can be problematic because they form N-nitroso compounds like nitrosamines, which are carcinogenic. They're pretty linked to stomach cancers or bowel cancers. And when exposed to high heat, they really wreak havoc. So, keyword though, I mean, when exposed to high heat, so if we're warming up these deli meats, that increases the risk for these compounds to form, just FYI. There are also nitrates, which are really molecularly similar to nitrites. These are more often found in plant foods just by way of agriculture and how we, process our vegetables and produce. But this is something to keep in mind if you are purchasing cured or uncured meat seasoned with things like celery or things like that, because they'll inherently contain nitrates, and when heated these can also turn into harmful compounds. So just something to keep in mind. I also got a lot of questions about cured meat versus uncured meat. Deli meat has to be labeled cured if it's cured using synthetic or artificial preservatives, like the ones we just talked about. It can be labeled uncured if it's using things like sea salt, celery powder, beetroot powder, juices, things like that. So that's really the difference in terms of packaging. Curation, so curing of meat, is actually a practice that we've been doing as humans for almost 5,000 years or more. And it's essentially using salt to cure the meat, which is a preservative method, natural preservative method that we've been using actually to pickle things as well. So it's really helpful in terms of keeping food around for those winter months where things might not be as abundant. But deli meat also gets a bad rap because of its salt content. Now, if you've familiar with everything else that I talk about here, salt is really important for so many things. It's a really important mineral, and we burn through it pretty quickly, especially if we have a lot of stress. It's really important for blood sugar regulation as well, progesterone production, normal blood pressure regulation too. So it's really important, and as long as we're intaking adequate potassium, we should be fine. So in an ideal world, I'd also be getting my deli meat from an animal that was given its natural diet and was raised in its natural environment. That's really difficult to find with deli meat. If you have access to that, that's amazing. So I kind of try to opt for more of the organic deli meat if I can. At least they're given an organic diet, and that's okay. That's good enough for me. And sometimes I don't even opt for that if I can't find it. So it's really up to you and kind of what your price point is, what your values are as well. So in general, ideally, I'd be looking for something that's organic, nitrite-free for sure, really minimal preservatives at all. I usually just look for salts. And, if you do like flavor, you can look for something with beetroot powder, celery powder, onion powder, that kind of stuff. Just keep that in mind, what I mentioned about the nitrates as well. That's typically what I go for. And naturally, pretty much default, probably the deli meat will be uncured. Let's talk about storage now. So your fridge should be no higher than 40 degrees Fahrenheit. Your freezer should be no higher than 0 degrees Fahrenheit. And, eat your deli meat, whatever you make it with, right away to avoid any potential bacteria growing. Don't leave your deli meat out for any reason. Always put it away right away once you're done making it or using it. And don't wait more than a few days to finish the actual deli meat once you open the package or buy it and bring it home from the supermarket. Now, last but not least, let's talk about common sense, because this is really important, but a lot of people overlook it. So use sight and smell, are two amazing God-given gifts. Look at it, smell it. If it smells weird, looks weird, don't eat it. Also, take this into consideration when you're eating deli meat, not from a source that you're familiar with. If there's a restaurant that you're getting it from, or, some type of sandwich shop, if you're not confident or clear on how the deli meat is sourced or stored, it's probably better to steer clear of that and maybe try to recreate that on your own with the things that you're in control of at home. So that's my PSA for today. I'll show you on the next couple slides too the kinds of deli meat that I keep in the house. So stay tuned. Hope this was helpful too. Let me know.